I didn't just ask for money. I asked for a premature funeral. That is the only way to describe what happened the morning. I shattered my father's heart. I stood in the center of the courtyard, the place where I had learned to walk, where I had learned to ride. I looked at the man who had given me life. I didn't see a father. I saw an obstacle. I saw a gatekeeper standing between me and the life I thought I deserved. To my young, arrogant eyes, his house was not a sanctuary. It was a prison. His wisdom sounded like nagging, and his protection felt like chains. Primera, wanteth, out. The words tasted like ash the moment they left my mouth, but my pride forced them out anyway. Father, give me the share of the estate that falls to me. In our culture, in that time, you didn't touch the inheritance until the patriarch was buried in the family tomb. By asking for it while he stood there, breathing, living, and loving me, I was essentially saying, I wish you were dead so I could get on with my life. I waited for him to scream. I waited for the back of his hand. I expected him to call the servants to throw me out for my insolence, but he didn't scream. That was the worst part. He didn't yell. The silence that filled that courtyard was heavier than any stone. He just looked at me. His eyes didn't hold anger. They held a sorrow so deep, it looked like a physical wound. He didn't argue. He didn't list the reasons why I wasn't ready. He simply turned, walked to the strongbox, where the family's future was kept, and began to divide his living. He gave me what I asked for. He handed me the weight of his labor, the fruit of his years, and I snatched it from his hands without a thank you. I was already gone. My body was there, but my heart was already halfway to the horizon. I didn't waste time. Not many days later, as the story goes, I gathered everything. I liquidated my assets, turned land and livestock into cold, hard currency, and strapped it to my waist. I walked out the front gate with my chest puffed out, convinced I was the master of my destiny. I didn't look back. I was terrified that if I turned around, I would see him watching me, and that his gaze might weaken my resolve. I wanted to disappear into a world where no one knew my name, where no one knew my father, and where the only rules were the ones I made up. The journey to the far country was exhilarating. Every mile I put between myself and my home felt like a layer of skin being shed. I was becoming someone new, someone dangerous, someone free. When I finally arrived in that distant landless city of marble, spices, and noise, I felt like a god. I had more gold than most men see in a lifetime, and the city smelled it on me. You have to understand, the world loves a wealthy fool. I didn't have to make friends. I bought them. I walked into the taverns, and the room would bend toward me. I was the sun, and the parasites were the planets orbiting my purse. I threw banquets for people whose names I didn't know. We drank wine that cost more than a laborer's yearly wage. I was surrounded by laughter, by beautiful women, by men who clapped me on the back and told me I was the wisest, most generous soul they had ever met. I believed them. That is the seduction of the far country. It acts like a mirror that shows you only what you want to see. I thought they loved me. I thought I was popular. I didn't realize I was just the host of a party that would end the moment the wine ran dry. I lived in a blur of sensory overload. I traded my father's dignity for the applause of strangers. I traded my heritage for a headache the next morning. And for a while, it worked. For a while, the noise drowned out the quiet voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like my father. But the thing about riotous living is that it is a fire. It burns bright. It burns hot. And it consumes everything it touches. It consumes your money, yes, but it also consumes your character. It eats away at your soul until there is nothing left but ash. I didn't notice the bag of gold getting lighter. I was too busy being the king of fools. I was too busy proving to the world that I didn't need anyone. Then, the famine came. It wasn't just a bad harvest. It was a catastrophe. The sky turned to iron and the earth to brass. Prices skyrocketed overnight. The music in the taverns stopped. The laughter died. And suddenly, I reached into my purse, and my fingers touched nothing but the rough fabric of the lining. It was gone. All of it. The inheritance that took my father a lifetime to build, I had wasted in a season of madness. I went to my friends, ones who had sworn brotherhood over cups of my wine. I knocked on their doors. Surely, I thought, they will help me. I fed them when they were hungry. They will return the favor. But the doors didn't open. They looked at me with cold, unrecognized eyes. I was no longer the wealthy patron. I was just another beggar in a city of starving people. The world that had hugged me when I was rich now kicked me when I was down. Desperation is a cruel teacher. It strips you of your pride faster than any lecture. I was hungry and gnawing, twisting pain in my gut that I had never felt in my father's house. I sold my fine clothes for scraps of bread. I slept in alleyways, shivering, remembering the warmth of the hearth I had abandoned. But hunger doesn't negotiate. I needed to survive. I swallowed the last ounce of my dignity and went to a citizen of that country. I begged for work. Any work. I, a son of nobility, a man who had worn the finest linen, was now pleading for the chance to be a servant. The man looked at me with disgust. He didn't offer me a place in his house. He sent me to his fields to feed swine for a Jewish boy. This wasn't just a job. It was a spiritual death sentence. Pigs were unclean. To touch them was to be defiled. To live among them was to become less than human. But I went. I had no choice. I walked into that pen, the mud squelching between my toes, a mixture of filth and manure. The smell was overpowering, a thick stench that coated the back of my throat. I sat there in the muck, my stomach screaming. I watched the pigs eat. They were feeding on carob pods, husks that were unfit for human consumption. And in that moment, I hit the absolute bottom of existence. I looked at the pigs, and I was jealous. They had purpose. They had food. They were cared for. I was nothing. I was a hollow shell of a man, starving to death in a foreign land, covered in filth, forgotten by everyone. I reached out a trembling hand, thinking about taking a pod from the trough to eat it. That is how low I had sunk. I was ready to fight an animal for garbage. It was there, in the silence of the pigsty, that the noise of the world finally faded completely. The parties were gone. The fake friends were gone. The arrogance was gone. All that was left was the reality of what I had done. The illusion of freedom had led me directly into slavery. I had traded a palace for a pigsty, and then something shifted. It wasn't a voice from heaven. It was a memory. The smell of the pigsty was suddenly replaced, for just a fleeting second, by the scent of fresh bread baking. I remembered the servants in my father's house. I remembered how they had bread enough and to spare. Even the lowest hired hand in my father's employ was living like a king compared to me. They had dignity. They had food. They had a home. I looked at my hands, caked in mud. I looked at my rags. How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare? I whispered, my voice cracking from dehydration. And I perished with hunger. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I had been so wrong. My father's house wasn't a prison. It was a paradise I was too blind to see. But now, surely, it was too late. I had wished him dead. I had wasted his life's work. There was no way I could go back as a son. That bridge was burned, and I had been the one to strike the match. But maybe, just maybe, I could go back as a survivor. I began to formulate a plan. It was a desperate, humiliating plan, but it was the only hope I had left. I wouldn't go back and ask for forgiveness. I didn't deserve it. I wouldn't go back and ask to be his son. I had forfeited that right. I would go back and apply for a job. I would say, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. I rehearsed the speech over and over in the mud. I needed to get the words right. I needed him to know that I understood my place now. I wasn't the prince anymore. I was the servant. If he would just let me sleep in the barn and eat the leftovers from the servant's table, that would be enough. That would be heaven compared to this hell. If you are listening to this, and you feel like you've gone too far, like you've burned too many bridges, or like you're stuck in a pigsty of your own making, I need you to listen very closely to what happened next. Because I got up out of that mud, I turned my back on the far country, and I started the long, painful walk home. But before I tell you what I found when I crested that final hill before I tell you about the most shocking moment of my life, I want to ask you a favor. If this story is resonating with your spirit, if you've ever felt the weight of regret, please take a second to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. It helps us share these stories with more people who might be feeling lost right now. And leave a comment below. Have you ever had a moment where you realized you needed to go home? I want to read your story. Now, let me tell you about the walk back and the figure I saw standing on the horizon. The road back was an agony of miles. Every step was a battle against the shame that whispered, I should just lie down and die. My feet were bleeding, wrapped in rags. But my spirit was in worse condition. I crested the final hill, the same one I had marched over with such arrogance years before, and I saw the house. I stopped. I was a walking scarecrow, smelling of death and swine. I prepared to fall to my knees in the dirt, expecting nothing but rejection. But then I saw him. He was standing at the edge of the property, scanning the horizon as if he had done it every single day since I left. He didn't wait for me to crawl to him. In our culture, a patriarch never runs is considered shameful. But my father hitched up his robes, exposing his legs to ridicule, and he sprinted. He ran toward my failure without hesitation. I stiffened, expecting a blow. Instead, he crashed into me. He wrapped his arms around my pig-stained rags, weeping into my neck, ignoring the stench that clung to my skin. I tried to pull away, to recite my rehearsed contract of slavery. Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no longer worthy to be called your son. He didn't even listen to the part about being a servant. He wouldn't hear of it. He turned to the shocked servants and shouted, Bring the best robe and put it on him. The robe to cover my shame, put a ring on his hand. The sign of authority and trust restored, and put shoes on his feet. Slaves went barefoot, only sons wore shoes. That night, the house shook with music and dancing. We didn't eat scraps. We ate the fatted calf. I realized then that my definition of freedom had been a lie, and my view of my father had been wrong. I thought I had to earn my way back, but grace cannot be earned. It can only be received. I thought my sin was great, but I found out his love was greater. You can never go too far, and you can never stay away too long. If you are in the pigsty right now, just look up. The Father is already running to meet you. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Until next time, if this story spoke to your soul, please support this channel by subscribing, hitting the like button, and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. And please, leave a comment below. What does coming home mean to you? I read every single one.